Yep.
Oh, Matt, I have a question along those lines. Are we going to get any kind of a summary of what you're going to tell us, or do we need to take notes?
Uh, I would say I'm going to give you a summary. I would say it this way, if anything, you might want to take notes just for your own, like if there's something that sticks out to you personally or
Yeah.
something you want to
Okay.
follow up on. But outside of that, I will be sending you what you need. And also just to be really clear, and I'll talk more about this in just a minute, but to allay any fears, our conversation tonight will also help form the conversation that we will have on site next month. And then even that conversation will yield a final report. So I just share that to say what I don't want you all thinking is that everything is somehow like I'm going to share some things with you tonight and it's finalized and not going to change. And if you don't catch that, you're in trouble. Let me set all of those fears aside. I will share information with you tonight, but this is really going to be a more of a group conversation that will set us up for being in person and then a final report. So lots to share tonight, but it'll be together and like I said, I'll send you some follow-up information. Thank you for that. Well, Steve, is it okay to start or should we wait just a bit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's dive in. Since we've got it recorded, anyone that jumps in will
Perfect.
catch up, and then anyone that's missed will post it so they can watch it.
Awesome. Great. Well, let me just first of all seriously say thank you for your time tonight. It is so good to see everybody. I'm excited to have this time with you. You all have done some really great work since I was there in person with you. We're going to share more about that in a few minutes, but the amount of participation, especially that you all have fostered, has been really encouraging and I think is going to yield a lot of insight as we move forward together. So let me open us in a word of prayer and then we're going to jump into some things together. So let's pray. Lord God, thanks for this night. Thank you for this gift of technology that lets us connect from many different places. And God, as we gather here tonight, I give thanks for this group. I give thanks for this church. God, thank you for the ways that you have moved among them. Thank you for the ways that you are moving among them. And God, we pray and anticipate and give thanks for the ways we trust you will move among them in the days ahead. God, I pray tonight, especially that you just give us a heart posture that will give us greater clarity and understanding. And also, God, just an openness to whatever it is that we might be being called into, whatever amount of transformation might be needed as we seek to be your church and what that means in this time and this place in which you have placed us. So, God, we give you thanks for this night. Please guide our conversation in just a really helpful way. And Lord, ultimately, might it be used to lead St. Peter's by the Sea into the days ahead with joy, with gratitude, with a focus on you. And Lord, where that goes, let us just trust you. And we pray all of this tonight in the power of your Holy Spirit and the name of Jesus together. Amen.
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 All right. Well, I've seen lots of you in different places kind of the last number of months, but to see you all together here is really good. So I'm really grateful for that. I'm going to share my screen and I just want to spend the first chunk of our time together doing a little bit of review and recap. It's been quite a while since we were all together and I was there on site with you. So I just want to jog our memory on some things, remind us why we've done some of what we've done, remind us of the importance of adaptive capacity. And then from that, it'll make more sense as we share some of the results of all the exercises you've been doing. So that's how we're looking to use our time together. So I'm going to share my screen. And as I do that, just give me a thumbs up that you can see that okay. Can you see this?
Yes.
Great, awesome. And just so you know, I intentionally put the workshop date, not the date today. So I put October the 2nd, and that's when I'm expecting to be out there with you all. So again, I'm going to be updating this. I'm just using this as a guide for our conversation tonight, as I said, but hopefully it'll be helpful for us. So I appreciate this quote. It's helpful for me. And so kind of just as a bit of a centering thought for us here tonight, this reminder that every few hundred years throughout Western history, a sharp transformation has occurred, that in a matter of decades, society altogether rearranges itself, its worldview, its basic values, its social and political structures, its arts, its key institutions. And 50 years later, a new world exists, and the people born into that world cannot even imagine the world in which their grandparents lived and into which their own parents were born. And then we recognize that our age is such a period of transformation. That was said by Peter Drucker, but he said that back in the 1990s. And you might remember I've said to you, I think this statement is true, except now I don't think it's 50 years anymore. I think it's 5 years. And in the reality of a pandemic world, maybe 5 months, things can just change so much. And so I just share that to say, you all as a church, you are not alone in exploring what does it mean to move forward? What needs to be different about us? What needs to be the same? Those are questions that everyone that I'm aware of, like in church world, is asking because precisely what we see on the screen here, it is such a different time. And so we remain God's church. We live faithfully into that. But what that looks like in the day and the age that we live in might be different, is different than it was 30, 40, 50 years ago because the world is a different place. So as we prepare for this future that we might have some ideas about, but really, frankly, a whole lot of unknown, I find these words to be helpful from Margaret Wheatley. She says, it's possible to prepare for the future without knowing what it will be. That alone is comforting for me, at least, to think about. And then she says this, the primary way to attend for the unknown is to attend to the quality of our relationships, to how well we know and trust one another. So here, especially that trust part. And then she says there's one core principle for developing these relationships. People must be engaged in meaningful work together if they are to transcend individual concerns and develop new capacities. So that's really my invitation to us tonight and to your church at this time to be engaged, to recognize we are engaged in meaningful work, first of all. I know that you wouldn't be involved in this journey if you didn't believe that, but I want to name that for us. And then to recognize the more strongly we do it together and building with a sense of trust, that the greater that happens for us, the greater chance we have of experiencing transformation into a new day. So I'm going to really keep encouraging us to focus on those relationships, keep building that trust, because that's going to be, it's almost like that'll be the fuel that carries us through what might lie ahead for us. Now, in saying that, I want to say this as well. Just because we have trust does not automatically mean there will be transformation. However, there will not be transformation without trust. Like I want to, so we have to foster trust as much as we can because we need it. But trust alone will not be enough. So I know just in talking with you, surveys, etc., I know there's a lot of love in your community. I know there's a lot of trust already. Wonderful. We need that. But we can't stop there because that alone doesn't lead us into transformation. So the trust is a great starting point. We're going to keep building on it, but that becomes the start, the necessary first piece to lead us forward. And here's why that's important. We're going to talk about a lot of different things, but at the end of the day, I love this diagram because ultimately the hardest work that we're going to do in this is a heart work. And the reason that I say that is that there'll be things that we can change and do differently that are fairly easy on the surface. Like we can sing 4 songs instead of 3. We can, change the sermon length to X amount of minutes. Like those are things that could be done externally. But where we're really going to have a challenge is when we're talking about adaptive change, there are things that we can do. And anytime you talk about change with people, it means there's a loss of some kind. The very fact, even whether you like it or love it, I mean, once you change something, loss is involved. And once loss is involved, our hearts get involved. And so there's going to have to be a heart work among us to move forward in new ways. And that's that I'm just going to say, and you'll hear me say it a lot, but that will be our hardest piece of work. That's why it takes more than just trust. There's going to have to be that transformation that allows something new to emerge among us. So again, we talked about this when I was out there. I just want to kind of name that for us again. Keeping all of that in mind, when we talk about leadership, and you all are providing leadership, so I want to name this for you all. Part of what we're doing then is energizing a community of people. So in your case, St. Peter's by the Sea, you're energizing a group of people toward their own transformation in order to accomplish a shared mission. Now, I want you to hear that because as we go through this, it would be possible that all of you on the call right now, let's just pretend for a moment that everything we talk about, let's say the group on this call says, you know what? Yes, we need to do it. We need to charge ahead, and that's great. There's a whole lot of other people in your congregation, and if they don't get energized in their own journey to join with you in the transformation, and that heart change doesn't happen for them, nothing is going to change. So part of our job as leaders is to do this very thing, which is helping energize people in their own transformational journeys so that we can join together in the mission that is before us. Part of what we're trying to do then is this: as leaders, we always want to distinguish between what needs to be preserved and definitely not change, and in this changing world, this changing context, what needs to be different moving forward. I would say to you, one of the reasons we've done some of the exercises we've done, especially the Tell Me a Story exercise, that reveals some of the DNA unique to you that we do not want to lose. So hear me clearly when I say that. My goal with you, our goal, is actually not to fundamentally change who you are. We actually want to dive more deeply in some ways into your DNA. But in doing that, it may look different moving forward than it did in the past. If one of the things that is unique to you all is the strong care you share for each other, in no way do we want to get rid of that. But what does caring for one another look like tomorrow versus yesterday? So again, that's going to be part of our work together. So some of our goals include this. We are going to specifically focus on for the community and its leadership to continually develop the depth and quality of relationships through trust that's going to be needed to foster the adaptive capacity to move forward. And how that's our goal. How are we going to do that? We're going to do that by developing a clear self-assessment of the church. You've already done a lot of the work. That's part of what I'm going to share tonight. And then we're going to seek to discover clear agreement around the adaptive capacity needed to move forward. That's going to be some of the work that we do tonight, or at least before we finish our, by the time I get out there for the on-site. And then after that, we want to get brutal clarity about the change that will be necessary to meet the challenges of the future with a sense of resilience. So this is a lot of the work that is before us that we're going to focus on together. And the way that that works is when you look at this, I just want you to have a sense of kind of the overall work that we're doing. In this phase one, what we're really doing are one, two, and three. If you all desire, it's really in phase two does steps 4 and 5. So what we're doing now, we're trying to learn about adaptive capacity. We're learning with greater clarity who you are. We're learning more about the challenges that are before you. We're also going to learn then what shifts we need to be making. When we do that, anytime we talk about any sense of change, there's going to be a loss. When we name the loss, again, even if it's something really good and everything people are excited about, the very fact you have a loss means there'll be some resistance at some point because we all face that. It's that heart thing that I just mentioned a few minutes ago. And then as we do this work, what we're also going to discover is that there's actually competing values that we want to name for each other. Are we a church that's focused on the people inside our walls, or do we need to be a church focused on the people outside of our walls? And recognize both of those are good things. Of course, we want to love the people in our church. We're not trying to stop doing that. And we want to love the people outside of our church. But notice those are two different things. And depending on time, resources, how we do things, they can start to compete with one another. As we gain clarity around that, though, we can navigate our way forward. So those are the main pieces that we're looking at this point. And then just very quickly, in terms of like, do we have an adaptive challenge? How do we know we have an adaptive challenge? Do we know it's not just a technical fix? When you hear these kinds of things happening, you know that you're dealing with adaptive challenges. So if we just tend to keep doing the same thing, hoping for a different result, but it's not changing. In fact, there's a decline or a cycle of failure that indicates probably an adaptive change is needed. If we're hoping that somebody can come along and just tell us what to do and we do it and everything is magically better, that's usually an indication. If there's always or a lot of conversation around, man, just it used to be so good. Why can't it just continue to be like that? If there's a sense of, man, we want to grow, we want to be moving forward in vitality, but we don't know how. I wish somebody knew how. Maybe there's even some complaining with that. That can be an indication. If there's a gap between what we say we want to be, but what we actually are, that's an indication that there's an adaptive challenge. And then sometimes, if we're just always doing this work avoidance thing, like we usually there's a tendency, I'm going to control the things that I can. And so I got to get my work done for today, the tyranny of the urgent, that I'm going to focus on that. That lets me not think about the bigger stuff that might be going on. And then finally, is there something that like we just know that like needs to be named, but nobody really wants to name it? That might be an indication. So again, if you've heard any of those things at times for you yourself, you can think, have I heard many of those, any of those? Those tend to be clues that this is some of the work that is before us in terms of an adaptive challenge. So, keeping all of that in mind, here are some of our key questions. And you might remember we talked about being on the dance floor and we talked about being on the balcony. So, remember, maybe some of you back in the day, high school, wherever, what was, if you were ever at a, high school dance or what was it like on the dance floor? You were bumping elbows with people around you. I always think of the junior high dance floor. You got usually the guys on one side of the dance floor and the ladies on the other, and you've got the junior high boys who've got too much Axe body spray on and all that kind of stuff. On the dance floor, you can smell the body spray. You can hear a little bit of the conversation with the music, but you can't see the whole thing. Well, in our world, I want to invite us to think about in your day in and day out the life of the church. What's the things you're experiencing day in and day out? When you're rubbing elbows with people, what are the conversations like? Like, what are you seeing kind of like maybe in a worship service or a meeting or those kinds of things? That's what we're talking about at the dance level floor or dance floor level. But then the balcony, if you're at that dance in junior high dance, if you get up on the balcony, it's there that you can see, oh, this group of guys is over here. Oh, the chaperones are over here. Oh, here's a couple in this corner, or whatever the case might be. It lets you see the entire picture. Uh, we're trying to do a little bit of that work here in this journey, which is I'm going to work with you to take a little bit of a step back, kind of look at everything that's going on and then that lets us ask questions like, what are the underlying issues that are present in the larger system? And then what is it we do about it? It's kind of like I was thinking about this as an example. Let's say that for some reason on Sunday mornings when your worship started, if every week it was starting 10 minutes late, think about what that would be like on the dance floor, which would be like in the moment. And I'm thinking people might get irritated or people might be like, why is this happening every week? That would be a dance floor moment. To step back on the balcony question would be like, wait, what might be the underlying issue here that's happening? And when we take that step back, maybe we realize something like, oh, the organist or the musician doing the prelude, they were looking at the wrong clock. Like that's and it was 10 minutes behind, and that's why they started that way. So like it's that stepping back to look at the wider picture. That's part of what we're trying to do here. So, keeping all of that in mind, part of what I hope will happen is I really appreciate this quote as well by Edwin Friedman. He says, when any relationship system is an imaginatively gridlocked, it cannot get free simply through more thinking about the problem. Conceptually stuck systems cannot be unstuck simply by trying harder. For a fundamental reorientation to occur, that spirit of adventure, which optimizes serendipity and which enables new perceptions beyond the control of our thinking process, must happen first. In other words, that second part, that description of the spirit of adventure, optimizing the serendipity, that's a heart issue. This isn't, again, just something that we can fix externally. There's the internal work that needs to be done to actually move us forward. So, difference between technical and adaptive challenge. I just want to be super clear on this for us and then launch into some of our conversation. A technical problem is when an expert can come along and say, make these tweaks or these external changes and your problems will be fixed. There are a whole lot of groups, there's a whole lot of consulting groups that do that kind of work. And that can be helpful because the technical problems, if you address and fix those, that's what builds trust. And you need trust. But the problem with technical fixes is they don't address the heart issue. And so you have not only technical challenges, you have adaptive challenges. Now, adaptive challenges, they cannot be solved with one's existing knowledge, skills, or tools. This is the part that requires a shift in our heart and our values, our attitudes, our habits, our behaviors. So this requires a learning posture or an experimental posture versus an expert posture. It's kind of like if somebody has a heart blockage, of course you want a surgeon with amazing technical skills. You want the best person who knows those skills to do the surgery, to do the operation, and to do the procedure right. You need that. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying it's not helpful. It's essential. That's a technical fix. However, when that patient goes back home, it's not going to help the patient if they go back and they just go back to eating all the wrong things, or they don't exercise at all, or they refuse to change their lifestyle. The surgeon cannot help with those things. The surgeon can do the technical procedure, but the surgeon cannot change the heart of the patient. And so for the patient, there has to be an adaptive change in that person's life, or all that technical work of doing the surgery in the end isn't going to help. That's kind of how I want us to be thinking about our journey together. We can change things to make them better externally, technically, but at the end of the day, it's a lifestyle, it's a heart change that we're really talking about. So keep that in mind as we keep on moving forward. So here are the questions we're going to be answering together. What is it that we need to be doing day in and day out to live out the gospel in the world today? That's a dance floor level. Like when I go into church on Sunday or any other day of the week, like literally in the minutia, how am I living out the gospel? And we also want to answer the question, what are the underlying issues that are keeping us from being who we're meant to be for the sake of the gospel? So taking a step back, looking at the church as a whole, what might be some underlying issues that are keeping us from being all that God has called us to be? And then the adaptive question is, once we recognize those elements, what's the transformation needed for us in our hearts to face our underlying issues to be who we're meant to be for the sake of the gospel? So those are the questions that we're looking to tackle together. So here's how we're doing that. We've identified your charism. That's on the left part of your screen there. And we're going to unpack that here in just a minute. We've identified more clearly your values, your core practices, the code of who you are. As we've identified your unique charism, that is who God has made you to be, we're then going to be applying that to the pain points in your community. And again, thanks to your good work, we have a much more clear sense of what is involved in those pain points. And what we're going to ask then is what pain point in the community might apply to your unique charism. And as we apply those to asking the question, what might that show us about who we need to be and what we need to do? So, in other words, what is ours to do? And as we recognize that, how might that inspire us to faithfully change and grow? That's the journey that we're on here. So you see that red line there on the screen. We're kind of at the point of the red line, which is by the end of tonight and then by the end of our on-site together, we'll have clarity, more clarity at least on our charism. We'll have more clarity on the pain points. We'll even have more clarity on adaptive initiatives we can take. But then you reach that point to say, will we live into these adaptive initiatives or not? And that's where the resistance tends to come, because that's where this idea of change comes into place. And that's where you're messing with things potentially that people hold dear or feel a sense of loss, or the very fact we're moving into something new. That's where the challenge comes for oftentimes resistance to transformation. But by being aware of it, we're going to talk through together how we might get through it as well. But again, I just want you to have a sense this is the journey that we're on and the good work that you're doing. Right there in the yellow circle, that's kind of where we are at this point. So here's what you've done. We've gathered a lot of data and the surveys, the stories, the Tell Me a Story exercise. You've done lots of interviews in the community. We've had focus groups together. We've taken all of that data and we're pulling it together. But what we're doing is that we're not just gathering a bunch of data and just saying analytically, totally, that what does it yield? We're looking at it together and we're going to together discern in the spirit, what of this do we most need to listen to? What surprises us? What have we not been paying attention to that now has been put in front of us? We're going to do that together to get a sense of discernment so that then together, elders, session, etc., will make decisions moving forward. So that's really our goal in our work together and what we're going to try to do. Just so you're clear on where we are, you all did the survey before I came out for the on-site. Then we did the on-site workshop together. And then you all helped the focus groups occur. Thank you for your help with me and getting those set up and everybody who was a part of them. We then invited the whole church to share in the storytelling. We invited everyone to share in the community interviews. You and I are now entering into this time of discernment. I'll use our time together to continue preparing a report so that then when I come out there for a final on-site visit in this phase, we'll be able to talk about that together. But the final report won't even happen until after our on-site time together. This is an ongoing conversation that will morph as we have conversation together. And again, as we have discernment together, because your voice is going to be really important in that. So again, these are the 4 ways that you've already been participating in the listening. That is the congregational survey, the focus groups, the storytelling, and the pain point interviews. So first one, this should look a little bit familiar to you, but I want to remind you, based on the surveys, when we pull the information together, one of the questions was, in one word, how are you feeling about the church? And you can see there with the word cloud what that came out to be. And again, just a reminder, because there's a lot of good news here. I mean, you see the number one was hopeful, and then you see grateful and good. That's wonderful. But you also see some words in there of disappointed, concerned, floundering, frustrated. So it's sort of a cautious optimism is kind of where we are with that at the moment. So when we summarize that, and what I've done is you had 58 responses to your to the survey, which is great. That tells us a lot of what we need to do. In summarizing all of that information, this is what it came out to share with us. And in a moment, I'm going to be asking you, what do you think about this? Does this sound accurate? So I've been talking a lot. In a moment, I'm going to be asking for your feedback. But the first thing is, in light of the surveys, this is sort of the grand summary based on those responses. And that is, the people of St. Peter's by the Sea Church bring forward a deep affection for their community, gratitude for pastoral leadership, and pride in the congregation's longstanding presence in the region. The tone across survey responses is one of appreciation mixed with some unease. The congregation celebrates its warmth, welcoming spirit, and strong pastoral care, while also expressing worry about declining participation, aging membership, and uncertainty about the church's future direction. Overall, St. Peter's Church by the Sea is marked by relational warmth, steady Bible engagement, and committed leadership from its elders and deacons. And at the same time, the congregation does voice concerns about worship vitality, declining membership, and slow decision making, coupled with questions of direction and focus. The overall emotional tone, again, is cautiously optimistic. Remember, words like hopeful, good, and grateful appear most frequently. Yet this optimism is tempered by worry and disappointment. The survey points to a congregation at a turning point. It has strong relational foundations and trusted leaders, but must adapt its worship, vision, and community presence to remain vital for the next generation. So let me pause here a second and ask you all, what stands out to you in a good way? So we can say what inspired you in hearing that. What inquiries do you have? Maybe it raised some questions for you as I gave that first quick summary. Maybe there was something that just bugged you and rubbed you the wrong way. Bring it on. We can talk about that too. We want to know that. And then, what do you sense even now in hearing that? What kind of change might be required of us to move forward? And just so you know, we're going to do this with the surveys. We're going to do this with the focus groups. We're going to do this with the listening sessions and pain points in the community. So we're going to do this all together just to give you. So just remember, this is only one of a couple others that we're going to be looking at. So let me ask you, what you can take it whichever direction you want here, but what what do you like? What questions? What irk? What's required of you? Help me out a little bit.
I the thing that I think I noticed just where we are today versus where we were when we first started this is we've had some change in staff, and I think some a little bit change in the tone of our music, and I think some of the concerns that I saw was the fact that we were those were stumbling blocks. The changes of that we're going to be a stumbling block as we move forward. And the thing that's been encouraging for me is the fact that as we have leaned into those changes and new staff have emerged or is in the effort of emerging, there seems to be a positive spin on all of that, which I don't know that if I expected it to be quite that easy, just from perspective of watching.
So, Bob, let me just ask quickly with that. I want to be clear. So, since we began this work, you're saying actually there's been an improvement, particularly with the music, and but then help me to understand that last part about it was easier than you expected. What does that mean?
No, well, my expectation was that those changes were going to be difficult for those were going to be the source of difficulty for the congregation to either make or accept or step up to. And my point was, as I watched some of this unfold, it wasn't nearly as difficult, or there weren't as many negatives maybe as I suspected there might be.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. Super helpful. So that's, I mean, actually, I take that as a fairly inspiring word. So thank you. Great. Someone else.
Matthew, I would go back further than that. We've had some changes of people that have left, and what has been kind of disappointing to me personally, and I'll just speak for myself, is that some people have made some decisions, personal decisions, on not to serve the church based on rumor, innuendo, or just, well, this is my friend and my friend's not doing this anymore, so I pull back from serving the church. I
Yeah.
have a real hard time accepting, and I know this is confidential, having people tell me I can't sing in the choir anymore because that person was my friend and they're not there anymore.
Yeah.
I really struggle with that. And whether it's on the choir or a committee or something, I am a little concerned about rumors getting such a large concern. I mean, and sometimes we react as elders, one person, it just takes one person to say something and we all kind of
Yep.
stop.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
No. Thank you. Max. No, Maxine, that's exactly what I'm asking for. So thank you. So as you lift that up, I hear a couple things. One is, and you're going to see this, and it's already been commented here a little bit. You're going to see this in some of the upcoming exercise results. You all have such a strong relational connection. And so, on one hand, that's really good. Like we want people to be connected and to feel like they belong. But then to your point, when that relationship may not be there, then somebody might pull back from serving in some capacity, which then I think reveals the potential negative, which is it's not a mission-driven connection, it's a relationship connection. And what we want to get to is in this journey, of course, we want everyone relationally connected, but even more importantly, for the mission of the church and who we are, that has to happen as well. So I thank you so much for lifting up. Please don't apologize. Cool. Anything else in this one? Does it surprise you? Does it sound pretty accurate? Did you hear anything that you were like, that's definitely right? Did you hear anything you'd say, I'm really surprised that showed up?
I
I
think it's
think
pretty.
I think it's
Go ahead, Lynn.
I think it's right.
Thank
I
you.
think that's what we've heard before. The one thing that we had at one of our meetings, people were feeling like they were left out. They didn't know what was going on. And so the treasurer and I have put together a half sheet to go in the bulletin once a month to give people an idea of what's going on at session and what the finances look like. Hopefully that's made some of those people feel better.
Yeah. So what you did there, Lynn, that's part of a again, I applaud that. That's part of a technical solution for better communication, which is going to build trust. So well done. That was great. Appreciate that. Lynn, but Lynn, I heard you say this overall sounds pretty accurate. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then Zach, was it you? Oh, go ahead, Lynn. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just going to say this. I think we heard this at the last meeting that we had.
Yep. Zach?
I would also agree with the statement. I think the scary part of it, and I think it's twofold. As far as the music is concerned, it's probably up in the air to a degree because you've had a shift, which hopefully is going to bring in some younger people. But it's also a shift that you're going through summer where we're usually, I won't say dark, but you don't have the full choir.
Yeah.
So it will be interesting what happens when the choir that's used to one type of singing comes in with a different type. And that's going to be an interesting, it's basically starting now and going forward next month or so. So that'll be interesting. The other part that's kind of scary, and it's in here, but it's kind of at the bottom. If you look at the demographics of our givers, most of them are in the very high age range. So you've got a very scary situation, whether it's either because they get upset about something, but more so just 3 to 4 years from now, some of us won't be here.
Right.
When you consider in the ages of the people that are probably doing rough number 40, 50% of the income.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. Yeah, right. So sounds accurate, but in the accuracy, it's naming some scary realities for us. Zach, thank you. That's really helpful.
That was Zach, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Yeah.
Zach. Yeah. Good. Thank you. And right, I think as Lynn said, it should sound somewhat familiar because, right, I covered some of this when I was out there with you. So keep all of this in mind. And I do want to take us now to the next one. And so now this you would not have heard as much about. And so this is now what I'm going to share with you is the results of compiling the results of all the focus groups. So this is not one focus group. This is all, and we ended up having 5 that we were able to do. And the good part of that was some of those groups of 5 were fairly large. And so there are a lot of, which is great. There's a lot of voices represented in this. Now I'm going to ask you a similar thing, which is now compared to what you just heard, does this sound pretty similar? Does this sound different? And again, does it sound accurate and any surprises you might have? So keeping that in mind, let me read it to you first of all. The focus group conversations reveal a congregation that deeply values warmth, hospitality, and the faithful leadership of its pastor and staff. The tone is largely appreciative, marked by gratitude for a caring community and hope for the future. At the same time, participants voiced real anxieties around generational sustainability, children and youth engagement, and the long-term viability of leadership in the face of aging demographics and potential burnout. A lack of communication was referenced as well, particularly between staff members and congregational leaders. Overall, the church is at a hopeful but pivotal juncture point. It is celebrated for its relational depth and inclusiveness while simultaneously wrestling with questions of succession, identity, and how to connect with the next generation in meaningful ways. So again, some of these same questions, but I'm going to now turn back to you. Where did you hear overlap? What sounded different? And then in particular, does that sound accurate or what surprised you? Help me out.
I think that it sounds pretty accurate from what I hear, which a lot of it comes from, being with the deacons and working together with the prayer team, for what the concerns are. And but I guess one thing that surprised me a little bit is there was a statement, something about concern with communication
Yes.
between staff and congregation. And I don't generally hear that as being a concern. I kind of hear the other is the positive things about our communication. I mean, it can always improve.
Right.
And I think it was even last week at the end of the sermon, Pastor Steve encouraged people when you're out on the patio, if you're a member, but you see somebody, that you don't know or whatever, which still happens, even if you've been going here for years, you've never really maybe talked to someone, and he was encouraging that.
Yeah.
So that one surprised me a little bit.
Yeah.
about the communication.
Yeah. No, that's what we want to hear and pay attention to. So thank you. Exactly. Good. Someone else.
Yeah, I think on both of them, the thing that kind of strikes me as being common is the relational side of it,
Yeah.
because there are a lot of strong relationships in the church, which is great. But then there was also something about being cautiously optimistic. And I think sometimes when we're so relational, we're a little bit concerned to make change because we don't want to upset anybody. We don't know who's going to leave the church. We
Yep.
don't know like timing of the
Yes.
communication when it should happen, right?
Yes.
So I kind of see that theme through both. And even on this one, the one page said about like reaching out to the next generation or something like that in meaningful ways.
Yes.
We talk about that a lot, but I think we're a little bit more cautious with that because we are so relational and we know our current demographic. And how do we do that? And, what's he going to do with the current demographics? I think the common theme to me is a relational piece of it related to being cautious.
Lisa, thank you for saying that. That is really well said. And it's a sort of classic example is one of the things that you do best might actually become one of your greatest challenges, right? Like,
Yeah.
right, we invest in each other and we're close. Awesome. But if we change anything, it might affect that relational connection, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
so good. Really,
Yeah.
thank you. Very
Yeah.
good.
You're welcome.
Good. Someone
I
else?
was wondering, can you hear me? There we
Yeah,
go.
go ahead, Shelley.
It rang true, but I just wonder, I'm struck with, did we were the responses deep enough? They seem kind of generic to me, like
Yep.
they could be any church.
Yep. Great observation, Shelley. So what you're going to find, I think, as we go through this, uh, I remember that right now I'm only presenting, I mean, kind of distilling down sort of all the responses, and therefore it's going to be somewhat general. But as we continue to have conversation with one another, we're going to keep digging into it more
Mm,
and more. Also, I would say to you, if it helps at all, some of these things apply to lots of different churches, and you're going to see a little bit more of this as we keep moving forward tonight, even lots of other churches, even if they have, let's say, the same exact three top elements you all have, rarely are they in the same order. And just I will tell you, not every church, and like as we're having this conversation, not every church is super relational,
mm,
right? Like not every church, I mean, so like some churches would say we're built on programs and doing things excellently. Relationships fall
mm.
to the bottom. So
Okay.
it um they are a little bit general, but I don't want us to make the assumption in that all churches then are automatically like this. The reason I keep asking you all, does this sound accurate, is because I want to make sure it's resonating with you all. And it sounds like so far, for the most part, it is, but I can tell you, like, not every church is relational.
Thank you for that, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's great. Again, great question, inquiry. You're exactly right. Good.
Matt, it's Joyce.
Yeah.
First of all, I just want to say that, yes, I thought it was right on
Okay.
the explanation of the process. And the bottom of all of this is our our church, the congregation. We're an aging population,
Yep.
and over 70% of the people are over 70, and I'm one of them. So I'm not talking out of school, but a lot of the issues that were identified are things we've been talking about.
Yep.
We know, the leadership knows that so many of those issues are existing. And at the bottom of all of it is finances. And we've been trying to address some of those issues, but I think we're at that, I forgot the word you used, it wasn't crucial, but we're at pivotal time.
Pivotal, right.
We've got to make a plan and develop a strategy and start to carry out some of these changes.
Yep. Yeah, Joyce, thank you for saying that because this is kind of a weird part of maybe the journey in that if I in particular, but if we have done our job well, this should sound familiar. In fact, I will have done or we will have done a poor job if you're like, wait, this all sounds super foreign. So on the one hand, that's a great word of encouragement. And then the reason we've spent so much time listening is because it's the listening that's going to help us to do the very thing you said, which is lay out like our way forward. But and here's the other piece of that. You, as an invested leader in your church, this is going to sound the most familiar with. Part of our goal in this is not just to have you as the leaders. This is a conversation that everybody needs to have. In fact, we would love to get to the point where everyone in your church is like, oh, yeah, we know that. Because when we can name it clearly, then we can navigate it. So, what you shared is actually really encouraging. And we're going to use that as our foundation to move forward. Great word.
Good.
So in terms of naming it, the word that came out was generational anxiety.
Yeah.
Hopeful, but we need to pivot.
Yeah.
I feel like that general generational anxiety is something that certainly the whole of our session carries that anxiety, and
Yeah.
probably the congregation shares it too. So in one sense, we name it. If we can name it, we can navigate it. But it's also one of those like when you think about like, well, are we going to be here in 10 years? You know what I mean? That's a really big question.
Yes.
And I'm not sure that that's a answerable question. You know what I mean? Like you can say, yes, we will, or we're going to plan for it. It seems to me there's a little bit of, and this is just and I don't know if there's an irk or,
Yeah.
whatever it is, but it's like, we're not collecting resource in order to, we're not collecting resource in order to ensure our longevity. We're in God's mission for where we are now. And I think a lot of our worry is more so survival. And I don't know how to, that seems to be a big one for us. It's like, if we don't have I guess I would say that this way, that churches of 75 people do amazing things.
Yes.
Churches of 375 do amazing things.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of how many you've got, but I just keep coming back to thinking it's what we do, not how many we are. And I feel like that if there's anything that I would say is is a persistent, I was going to use the word infection, but you know what I mean? That seems to be something we're always trying to deal with. So that's just more of an observation of what I think one of the big challenges.
Yeah, Steve, thank you for that. First of all, that's a great observation. And thanks for naming an irk. If Todd were here, he'd be like, thank you. Irks are his favorite ones. So, so thanks for doing that. Interestingly, as we go through this, and then this will be more by the time like we get to the final on-site and then report, let's take the example of resources. One of the things that we will have to do around the irk that you're lifting up is part of this journey is going to be designed to help us name, okay, everyone, what are we going to do with the resources? $50. Is the purpose of the $50 to make sure we're here 10 more days? Or is the purpose of the $50 to make sure it's for ministry and missional purposes? We're going to have to get to a place where we collectively name it. And then and it's not my job to say which one of the two. It's what are we as the congregation or group going to do? That's what then will start to move us forward, as opposed to like, it sounds like you all have done a great job of recognizing continues to exist. Hopefully what we're going to do in this journey is you've just named two competing values, really. Is it our own continued existence, or is it a missional? Well, which one are we going to be about? That by the time we're done, we're going to be naming that.
Matt, in addressing those two concerns that Steve made, it's back to that question. What we do so well is our problem, because we are so relational, and everybody, for the most part, feels like it's family. And that's why they're concerned. Are we going to be here in 5 years or 10 years? They're thinking about, like, is there family?
Which Jerry, yes, Joyce, which is why, so remember on the graph I showed you, we spent listening, and then number 2, what was it? Face the loss. So what did you just describe? My family might be different or gone. Oh my goodness. And you know what? Rightly so, like, because that means this is a group that has meant something to people. So
that's right.
That's not a bad thing, but and we must decide then, does the loss stop us, or do we move through the loss onto new things. And again, that's what we'll navigate together. So you're exactly right. But this is why, this is why this is hard work. This is where the transformation piece comes in. Uh, and many times in instances, it's like, no, the pain might be too great. And so again, that's what we have to navigate together. So thank you. This is really good. You all, this is great. Anything else on this one before I go to the next one? I too noticed a lot of overlap with the focus groups and the surveys, and I wasn't surprised in that because this is kind of trying to get at some of the same things from a different angle. So I was encouraged. I felt like there was a lot of continuity between the two, which is great. So as we get ready to move forward now, I want you to keep this question in mind. We are getting ever greater clarity, and right now they're still kind of general concepts. By the time we're done, we will narrow this down even more specifically. But how might the charism of our church, now we're going to start to turn our attention other ways, address the pain points of our community as an expression of God's mission in the world? And then how might that inspire us to faithfully change and grow? So again, kind of keep those questions in the back of your mind. And the first way I want to do that is I do want to invite us to get pretty clear about your charism. And so this is going to be based on now the tell me a story exercise that you did. It was that exercise that most is going to reveal some of your more particular charisms. So far what I've done is I've described some characteristics of you, which you all said so far, yep, that sounds pretty accurate. Now I want to try to name that even a little bit more carefully under this term of charism. So before I actually do that next, I do want to ask this group, based on what you've already heard or what you know of your church, what would you say, you know what, if I hear this as part of our charism, I'm not going to be surprised. Can you just help me out there a little bit? What would you say? That wouldn't be a surprise to me. I'll help you out with one.
I was going to say, nobody
I'm
wants to
good.
hear.
Well, you've already said it. Like, so we've
Yeah,
talked a lot about
relationships,
exactly. I was going to say
connections.
highly relational.
Yeah,
So
highly relational.
I would not be surprised if I hear something with high relationship. Great, Steve. Very good. Is there anything else that you can think of that might rise up? You'd say, I wouldn't be surprised if I heard that.
Well,
I would
it's,
say, I'd say prayerful. That's my other one.
Yeah, great. Thanks. Good.
I'd also say relational, but sometimes it's just like at the dance, you have certain cliques that stay together,
Yeah.
and sometimes that happens in a church too.
Yeah.
You know, we have a thing like if you sit in somebody's seat on the right hand of the church, you can get kicked out of that seat,
Yes.
which is always amazing to me.
Yes.
It happens in a lot of churches. I'm not saying just ours, but we are very relational. Even when we're in service, we tend to sit with the same people. And I'm admitting I'm one of those. I mean, I'm on the left side and you look at the other side and it's full and people like, oh, you sit on the left, and it's like, oh my goodness. So that is one of the downsides about relational in my mind is we're open to others, but we're not necessarily open to others within our own congregation.
Yeah. Good.
Maybe I'm not saying it real well, but it's like certain people going to the same Bible study. We have groups,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's you need to do that, but you also have to kind of get the big picture focus as well. You can't just, I don't know, maybe I'm not putting it right. It's hard.
No, that I totally hear you on that. And part of you didn't use the word comfortability, but we get comfortable with a certain group of people or a way of doing things, and then we stick with that because it's comfortable. That's good. Thank you. How about one more, and then I'll share with you. But is there one more that comes to mind that maybe you wouldn't be surprised to hear?
Generosity.
Yeah.
Oh, I heard two. I heard generosity, and what was the other one?
I was just going to say caring.
Yeah, great.
I was going to kind of say the same thing, Lisa, and maybe it comes under prayerful also, but I see a lot of caring about finding out some of really what's going on with people and really following through on that.
Mm.
And also to the point of, answered prayers. So it's not like you just sort of address something initially, but there's carry through.
Great. Excellent. Excellent. Good. Well, let's take what you said and we'll start to look at this a little bit more deeply. So, based on particularly what we heard, tell me the story and what rose up from the groups and the sharing, the Tell Me a Story exercise revealed a congregation with deep practiced values rather than aspirational ones. So, St. Peter's is a community where lay leaders and long serving members have consistently embodied shepherding, welcome, biblical formation, and practical service. Many of the stories highlighted individuals who did not simply hold positions, but they lived out relational, spiritual, and servant hearted leadership. So the big picture is of a church whose DNA is characterized by connection, so that you guys were spot on, long-term faithfulness and care, there's the care, expressed in worship, study, and service. The stories confirm that the congregation's strength lies not in programs, but in people who shepherd others through presence, prayer, and tangible support. This charism positions St. Peter's uniquely to serve both insiders and the wider community with credibility and trust. Now, I would say on that last sentence, if the congregation so chooses, because you all, I think, have rightly said
Mm.
our strength of relationship is wonderful, but if we're not careful, it can blind us to some of the outsiders because it changes the dynamics of our family. But it is an opportunity at the same time to connect with others who, and we know this, we live in a world where actually people are seeking relationship because loneliness has become such an issue. So it has the potential to be a gift to the wider community. So actually, you hit on a lot of this, which is really great. Let me ask again then, does this sound accurate? Any surprises in what you heard?
Sounds pretty accurate.
And not many surprises.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Mm.
It's kind of, for me, it's really energizing. I'd like to work at a church like that.
So let me just say here for a minute, and I'm gonna just while you're still thinking, because I want to hear. It sounds like so far this sounds pretty accurate, but I want to go back to. I think Shelley made a great point. Isn't this every church? No, like particularly this one, shepherding. There's a lot of churches that do not have a sense of shepherding. Uh, a church where the leaders embody the shepherding themselves, and it's not just a title they hold. I can tell you there are many churches where there are title holders who are not living into it themselves. So to have a church where many of your leaders have embodied what we're supposed to be anyhow, man, what a gift. The word is it's not listed in here, but one of the words that keeps coming to mind for me with you all is the word intimacy. It seems to me you all have an ability to foster an intimacy with one another spiritually, in care, in prayer, all of those kinds of things. There's a whole lot of churches that are not intimate. And I can say that I'm not saying that theoretically. I have either been a part of or spoken with such churches. Now, they have their own strengths, but just to point it out, not all churches are shepherding. So again, I just want you to hear that. Um, I was struck by the term because I think this is interesting, this long-term faithfulness. Um, you maybe you've heard. I know Eugene Peterson had used it. I don't know if he's the one that originated, but the idea of long-term obedience in the same direction.
Mhm.
It seems to me you all have a sense of that in your DNA and charism, and that's a beautiful, wonderful thing. So, good. Others of you, then, is there anything else that does? Are there any surprises in what you hear?
I think it was mentioned earlier. I think that so much of all the good stuff about St. Peter's, the foundation comes from prayer. We are such a prayerful church in all aspects. Uh, I mean, there's a lady by the name of Dixie. She's been leading prayer groups forever, probably since 25, 30 years. And, you know, online prayer, in-person prayer. it's just all through our church from the pulpit. We're just a very prayerful church.
I'm really glad you said that. I think that's going to be something that this is super helpful. While prayer is listed, you're just putting some thoughts in my mind. I think prayer is something that you all, as we look to the future, given that's part of your strength and DNA, I think we need to leverage it even more in some different ways. And we can talk about that another time. But I'm just so glad that you mentioned that. Thank you.
Mm.
If I can add to that just a little bit too, which I think is great, and Joyce, I mean, described it so well. Dixie has done great. I don't want to throw an irk in, but there is some anxiety, generational anxiety about that, because Dixie was asking me a while ago, like, okay, who's going to take this over? And so we talked about, just looking for people to mentor into that, that kind of lifestyle. And so I think there's a little bit of that. I'm just raising it to say, yeah, it's here, but I think there's also a little bit of like, how do we pass this on, or
Yep.
involve younger people in that same kind of pursuit? So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Good.
I think you just made a very important point, Steve. Now, one of the things we can do as leadership is not waiting for things to happen. We can start planning for them before they happen. Plan for somebody to take Dixie's place. Plan for the replacement people. Start training them. I think that would be one of the greatest things we could do.
Mm-hmm.
Good. 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 Great. Only other word, and then I'll move us on. I just also, because I did notice this in conversation, and biblical formation in one way or another was another one that came up many times. And so I just wanted to lift that up as well. It does seem to be a significant part of who you are. So excellent. Good, good, good. All right. Now we take that charism, and now I want us to turn our attention to some of those pain points. And I just want to remind us that, where we are in life and reality, we can say all we want about our church, and I know it means a lot to us, but nobody cares in this world if your institution, in this case, even your church, survives. They only care if your institution cares about them. And so I just lift that up for us to be thinking about then, like, of course, we want new people to come and connect, but the only way they're going to do that is they understand that you actually care about them, that it's not just a one-way kind of thing. So keeping that in mind, and again, I just want to say great job on the number of interviews you all did. 67 is that's terrific. Just well done. Whoops. Here's what we learned when we did that and pulled all the information together. The community pain point interviews reveal a city marked by both deep appreciation for its quality of life and significant anxiety around social cohesion and local governance. Residents consistently celebrated the beauty of the region, its weather, proximity to the beach, and the sense of safety and friendship found in certain neighborhoods. At the same time, they voiced strong concerns about challenges that erode belonging. So things like hopelessness, crime, political polarization, traffic, and frustration with city leadership. The emotional tone was mixed. There was a gratefulness, but there was anxiety. There was hopefulness, but there was a sense of weariness. So many participants long for unity in where you all live. They long for collaboration. They long for a renewed civic spirit. Underneath the specific concerns lies a deeper ache for connection and common ground, an invitation for the church to position itself as a bridge builder, convener, and servant to the community's flourishing. So let me pause there for just a moment as well. Other than I can't imagine anyone was surprised by the weather, right? Like, of course, like I'm just gonna, we'll just put that one on the table. But very quickly, beyond that, what sticks out to you when I read through that?
Did I hear the word before? Because I interviewed, I think, 4 people, friendly. They thought that Huntington Beach was a very friendly community too, and I feel that way too.
Yeah,
I
it said
don't.
the safety and friendship here
Oh, there
found
it
in
is.
certain
There it is.
neighborhoods. Yep,
Yeah,
good,
friendly, safe.
yep, good.
And I have to say the strong concerns about the challenges that erode belonging are pretty powerful concerns within the community for sure. And I have to agree that the concerns are also positioned within the congregation.
Ah, yeah. Right. So thanks for
Mhm.
saying that, Bob. These aren't just external out in the world. This is close to and in our home, as it were, as well. Good. Good. Thank you. Good. Anything else that stuck out or surprised just listening to this part?
No,
Okay. So again, so keep that in mind, your charism, pain points, where
Mm,
might the overlap yield
mm,
possibility for moving forward? So just keep that question in mind. Now remember, the default behavior of most organizational leaders is to solve problems for their organization rather than us changing our organizations for meeting the needs of the world. So part of what we're trying to do here is recognize, and I think especially as Christians, when when we're commanded to love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and says Jesus, love your neighbor as yourself. I feel like, I mean, this quote is not Christian specific, but I'm like, man, it just reinforces that whole idea to me. So keeping that in mind for us as well, that
Can
when
you read that again? Because that was really
yeah,
good.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah.
So the default behavior of most organizational leaders is to solve problems for our organizations. And let me just pause there, especially in church world, that's what many in the congregation, we look to our leadership, pastors or session or whoever, hey, fix the problems in our organizations. Instead, the need is changing our organizations for meeting the needs of the world. And so that's a significant shift for us
mm.
to be thinking about that relates to the pain points. So, yeah.
Something that dawned on me right before we changed screens was the word bridge.
Yes.
That is it's not necessarily program that's going to lead us forward, but being a bridge between what's happening in our social environment and the conflict
Hmm.
and what the church believes. And maybe that's where we're going to find some of our,
Ooh.
but up until now, nothing really struck me. And I'm usually a solver, and it's not always about solving, it's about listening and watching and observing. But that bridge word really stood out to me.
Hmm. Shelley, actually, thank you for saying that, especially for this reason. And I love that you just said you're a solver because I think I want us to hear this. What you just described in mini version is what this adaptive journey is about, which is I'm usually a solver. I fix it quick. That's a technical response, which is again great. But I heard you say, but yeah, I've been listening, I'm kind of pondering, and then it came. Like, yes, like that's what we're trying to do, and it's going to take some work, but thank you for saying that. That's great. And actually, let's put a pin in that word bridge. That could be a very significant word as we move forward. So thank you for naming that. Great, great. So let me just summarize it. So taking out everything, the four exercises, everything. Here's a quick summary that kind of pulls all of that together. That we could say St. Peter's Church by the Sea is marked by relational warmth, steady Bible engagement, committed leadership from its elders and deacons. There's deep appreciation for the care and sermons of the pastor. At the same time, the congregation voices strong concerns about worship vitality, declining membership, and slow decision making coupled with questions of direction and focus. The overall emotional tone is what we've said, cautiously optimistic. Words like hopeful, good, and grateful appear most frequently, but that optimism is tempered by worry and disappointment. The survey, in particular, points to a congregation at a turning point. It has strong relational foundations and trusted leaders, but must adapt its worship, vision, and community presence to remain vital for the next generation. So again, that's an attempt to pull everything we've heard to this point together while also adding in just a little bit more detail in a few different places. I'm going to move on to strengths and challenges here in a minute that have really been identified. Before I do that, is there anything I just read that's a red flag for anyone or you're have a major concern?
I think turning point.
Turning point. Yeah.
The survey points to a congregation at a turning point.
Yes. Good.
I actually prefer turning point to pivot.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Great.
Just as an observation, pivot has the idea that we are like this, and now we're pivoting to
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Turning
agree.
point, and I also the word crossroads always just sound. What if we choose the wrong one? You know what I mean? There's always that worry.
Yes.
But I think the subtlety of turning point,
Great.
just my emotional response here.
Oh, that's great. Yep, perfect. That's really helpful. Good.
And I think with turning points, you almost have to seize them when they're there, or you can almost lose the momentum.
Yeah. Good. Good. Excellent. Well, again, I'll get this sent to you, but you can be thinking on this. And if there's anything that strikes you, at any point, just certainly let me know. But as we then distill all of that, uh, the three that really have kind of risen up to say, like, what would be then, and again, ties back to charism and characteristics, but what can we say are the overall strengths of your church? What does that look like? They would be distilled into these three areas. One, your community and fellowship, as we've noted, that the church is warm, welcoming, responsive in its fellowship. And I just gave you one representative quote in each of these. So, for example, it was said the church and congregation has always been very welcoming. There are many chances for fellowship. Leadership's available to help support. It's a cooperative group, organized, willing to learn new things. So, just very supportive in that way. A second area being the Bible studies and your small groups, that the Bible studies are consistent, well attended, and valued as spaces of connection and growth. One thing I don't know based on what you've all just shared, I don't know how much prayer might be happening in those small groups. I'm guessing a lot. So that might be included here as well. But then again, a representative quote, a variety of Bible study classes are well attended. Pastor gives life-giving, thought-provoking sermons based on scriptures. And then the third one, both the deacons and the elders, the service and care that they offer, that they are seen as dependable, communicative, and caring. And then the quote there, the deacons and their leadership, along with the elders, are appreciated. So I think that sounds pretty consistent with what we've been talking about, but I will pause there for a second. Any pushback on those three, as those are some of your top strengths? Okay. All right. Then some of the more significant challenges you all are facing, then this is what rose up. And again, I'll give you just one representative quote for each one. So the worship experience and music direction was listed as a challenge. So worship is perceived as lacking energy and vitality, with concerns about the leadership there, and the word predictability was used. The representative quote was, there is a sameness to the services each Sunday, that they become predictable. A change would be welcome and would bring a sense of newness and energy to the congregation. Now, sounds like you've already had some changes since this would have been shared with me, but that's what was shared. Number two area of concern, again, you've all mentioned it, but growth, membership, attendance. So the declining attendance and lack of younger families is a concern. The quote given there, church attendance remains at or above average, but does not seem to be attracting new people. There's been a serious decline in programs and outreach. If we continue to do more of the same, our church will continue to shrink. And then number three, decision making and pace of change. So leadership is seen at times as slow to act, oftentimes with committees, things getting bogged down in progress. So the quote given there, it appears the session is not stepping up fully or supporting some of the needed tasks and leadership roles. If we continue to do more of the same, our church will continue to shrink. Any thoughts to those observations?
Yeah, the second one, we've already started to see a change. Right now, we've got really good attendance,
Great.
Consistently, and even a little bit higher. We're seeing newer faces, not in huge numbers, but in handfuls.
Great.
So I would say that one's not. And I kind of want to maybe because I'm a leader, I kind of want to disagree with number three.
I do too.
Okay, go ahead.
I do too.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Lynn.
Yes. I do not agree that the session is not stepping up and fully supporting some of the needed tasks and leadership roles. I think the session does all they can do every single month.
Mhm.
And I really don't see that we can do anything more than what we are doing.
Right.
If I was just to throw a comment out there, I think the session is doing it was working really hard to step up and but if I the concern that I would have is I think the people that are not involved at the level of leadership are expecting to be led and carried into areas and not necessarily willing to do any of the work other than come worship on Sundays.
We need to get the names of the person that wrote that last comment for the nominating committee.
That's a good point.
So Bob,
Yeah.
thank you for
Put them to work.
one of my questions there was like, let's underneath that comment, what might be going on? I think you maybe perhaps just named one of those elements, which is those that are in the session and leadership know just how hard work is happening and how much they're doing. But then there's that gap, and those not in it either don't see it, don't recognize it, etc. So that's great. And so my point in that is that's again one of the that does become an adaptive challenge. That's not just a communication issue. That is an adaptive issue because as you indicated, there's a lack of involvement or a lack of willingness to get engaged in the ways that are needed. So I appreciate lifting that up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like that they kind of all three go together, right? Like what people see that aren't in leadership, that are not sitting in session or committees, is probably the first one and the second one. They see the maybe lack of energy or vitality in the worship and music, and that this was done before we changed our music program. And then they see maybe a lack of attendance, but even if it's growing, they may not see enough young families in their mind. But and they may just relate that to what are we doing about this? You know, we haven't changed a whole lot over the last, you know, several years. So what are we doing about the first two? And that might lead to like the perception that we're not acting fast enough.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like they all three go together.
Yeah.
Hey, Matt, when were these questions answered? What month? Was this the focus groups?
Well, so actually, what this is actually drawn from all of them across, but even that is, I mean, it's now been a couple months since they were last. They would, oh, sorry, let me back up. They obviously would not include the pain point interviews because those pain point interviews were for outside your church. These are for in your church.
Yeah.
That happened a number of months ago at this point.
I would observe though that, I mean, just sorry, Joyce.
That's okay.
I would say that we've got to also be careful in this, in that shift. We have had a significant change in our leadership, our music director, but to be careful not to see the change in the music director as a technical shift. Okay, we solved that one. That's an adaptive, yes, we made a technical change, but still the congregation's got to catch up. Choir's got to catch up. There's a whole lot of things that we in general might be satisfied or feeling like, oh, there's a different dynamic to it. But that different dynamic's going to take a while. And I would say, while we all love Stan, he's still new. You know what I mean? So how are we supporting, you know, what's the overall participation? So it's not just someone who's like, oh, this is a different flavor. It's like, no, this has got to be we've got to keep, I think there's more work to do in terms of the overall participation and appreciation for who we've been as a congregation. Some of the other parts of worship that we really do value and don't want to give up. So.
Yeah, and thank you, Steve. I'm really glad you said that because remember what we identified earlier tonight when one under signs that an adaptive change is needed. Remember that one of them was if we look to the hero, and so is Stan your new music person then?
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So if we're counting on him to fix everything, that's actually an indication that there's deeper work, again, the adaptive work that's still going to need to be done. So Steve, I think you're spot on with that. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good, good, good.
And that was my question because things have changed during the summer. Since Stan has been the music director, we have blended services, two kinds of music. People were clapping. I mean, I see energy on Sundays now.
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
I also disagree something about the comment about the sermons. The sermons, when Steve preaches them, they're fantastic. When he's gone and we have guest speakers, sometimes they're not as good. But on the whole, I think our sermons are great.
So as you say that, let me two things that you're raising up here. So one would be um um well, actually let me say one thing. One is keep in mind that for you one of the reasons this is an adaptive challenge is let's hypothetically say let's say all three of these are wrong. Let's just say that. Like let's say in reality these are not accurate. In a way it doesn't matter because guess what? That's part of the perception.
Perception.
And so this is exactly why it's adaptive and challenge. Like this is, and let me say to you all, this doesn't mean that y'all aren't working super hard. It doesn't mean that you're not living in your, the problem is it's not always being perceived that way. And
Yeah.
so that's not even on you all. That's the nature of an adaptive challenge. So I want to say thank you. Oh, that's one level. And then the second one would be I'm going to encourage us, and if we continue into phase two together, and that'll be up to you all to decide. But we'll be one of the ways that we move forward in adaptive learning is we conduct different experiments. And actually, this is really cool. It sounds like you all have already done some experimental work, like Stan coming in, and it sounds like a few other changes you've made. What we have to do is not just then stop there. We need to say, if there's, you just said a moment ago, there's increased energy. Well, why, when this happened, was there increased energy? Like, we make tons of observations around that so that we can then interpret why it's really happening, so that then we can take further action to build on it. We can't just stop with, okay, Stan's here now and it's better. No, 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 no. There's a deeper reason. Like, what was different? Is it the style of music is more army? Is it more familiar to people? Is it more upbeat? Is it like we ask 100 questions that then are going to lead us to ever more answers? If we don't do that, eventually you will just default back into, the way it had been. So I just want to remind us both of those things. We want to, whatever's happening in a good way where there's energy, we want to observe that to the nth degree and glean out the good things. And then don't, don't, for any of you, don't feel like, oh my goodness, they're wrong. We're not doing our job. No, no, no. It's just that's their perception and you're working hard. So
Yeah.
good.
I have one comment, and I don't want to disagree, but I think our count has been consistent, but it's changed with the new choir director and bringing in, and if you count spouses and friends that are with them, you probably picked up about 15 to 20 people, but our count is running from 80 to 100, which is consistent. So I think there's been a shift as to who's there. And at this point, we haven't seen growing. Now, it's going to be interesting as we move into the winter to see what happens. And hopefully, we go from right now, we're maxing out at, barring special services, about 100. And hopefully, we go up from there. But we'll have to see what happens going into the winter.
Right. Good. Yeah. So Zach, thanks for naming that. Because so what I hear you saying is, yeah, there's some new, but it hasn't yet resulted in what we might call growth, right? Is that fair to
Well,
say?
we've lost some people, and Stan, and part of that could be the change in music as a negative,
Yeah.
that people have left because they didn't like the change, and now you're getting new people in, and it's going to be interesting how it moves us. And I don't know that we know until we move into the choir starting up and the choir music. I mean, we get complaints by people. I mean, it's not into the real modern music, but it's still in more contemporary music, which hopefully is going to be a good thing that brings in younger people. But
Yep.
that we have to see going
Yep.
forward.
Good. 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 So keep that in mind. And again, just trying to draw out a picture here of like, okay, so some of the strengths, some of the challenges that we're facing, or at least perceptions of the challenges. We just talked through that a little bit. What if looking at all of that, then what I've also done here, and we'll do more of this on site because I realize I just want to recognize our time here a little bit, but we have a couple more things to get through. When we notice, when we all the observing that we've done so far, what we've learned from each exercise, strengths, challenges, what we start to see then are some of the competing values that rise up that we will have to look at. Now, we can't address all of these at the exact same time, but one of the things I will want to hear from you all is which of these do you feel like, man, that's like our biggest one or one of our biggest ones? So, what are some of them? Well, one would be that stability and tradition, and this relates to your relationship as you all talked about, but stability, tradition, what we're familiar with versus innovation and energy. Like we'd love something new, but that might tip for those who've been there a long time. That's a competing value. Another one would be the deep care for our people. We don't want to forget them. We love them and care for them. But at the same time, how are we going to reach out to our neighbors and love them and connect with them? Another one would be and this kind of gets at the challenge that at least some people felt they noticed was a deliberate process in leadership and discernment, which is great, versus the need to be maybe either more quick at times or we could say timely decisions. I'd actually insert the word nimble there. Like, how nimble can you be to make quick decisions whenever they might be needed? Here's a big one, pastoral presence versus laity ownership. So the idea, are we a church built on sort of the professional spiritual person, or are we collectively owning our mission and vision together? The other way you could insert in that one would be, is it the 20% who are doing things, or really, what about the other 80% kind of thing? And then the last one, we don't want to lose our intimacy as a church. We want to maintain those close ties, and we want to grow. We want other people here. But how do we do that? Because if we grow, we're not going to be as intimate. And so, which one of these are we really? And so, one of the things that we'll do as we work together as well on some of these, like we'll need to decide together, well, which one is it? Like which one are we going to move forward in and towards? I'm just curious as you look over these, I'd love a couple quick responses from your perspective. Which of these competing values would you say, man, I feel like that's our biggest challenge? Which one? And it's fine if they're all different. That's okay. I just want to hear from you, from your perspective.
Boy, two of them really stand out to me.
Yeah, go ahead.
The stability and tradition versus innovation and energy,
Yes.
and the pastoral presence versus lay ownership.
Super helpful.
And I was going to say two stick out to me in the stability and tradition. It is at the top of that list, and then the small church intimacy versus growth ambition is the other one that stands out to me.
Great. I'd love to hear from everyone quickly on this one. Could y'all just go through it and it's your perspective, so it's not wrong. I just want to hear what they are.
I
Stability.
like
Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
stability and tradition versus innovation and energy,
Okay.
and small church intimacy versus growth ambitions.
Okay. Great.
I would say the small church intimacy versus growth ambitions, and the deep care for our people versus more the missional presence to neighbors.
Yep. Great. Thanks.
And I would say the top two, stability, tradition, and then deep care of our people.
Okay. Great.
I
Good.
say the stability and the small church intimacy versus growth, but I think we can do something about that last one. We can work at maintaining the intimacy if we grow.
Yeah. Good.
I'll second what Joyce said.
So that was the stability and the small growth one.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep. Thanks. Thank you.
And
Hi, this is Cheryl.
Yeah.
sorry.
Hi. I'm on the phone, so it's a little harder. I would say deep care for people, that one, and the small church intimacy, those
Yeah.
two.
Thank you. Okay. Great. Was there Maxine, did you go?
I was just going to say the stability and tradition versus innovation and energy.
Okay.
The deep care for our people versus the first two.
First two. Great. Okay.
And I haven't gone.
Yep. Go ahead. Yep. Thanks.
Well, do I disagree with the whole group who said one and two? Um, yeah, for me, I would say number one, the stability tradition.
Yep.
I would say the pastoral presence and laity. And I
Yep.
realize that's more selfish on my side. But I think that's a competing value I wrestle with.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great. Great.
I do like the point that Joyce made about the small church intimacy versus growth ambitions. I think that you can have growth, but still maintain that intimacy and develop it with the new people who have come in, because I've seen that happen
Yep.
when new people do join in. And it's, yes, we that have been there a little bit longer, have a lot more familiarity, but I've seen people brought in really pretty readily, like in our Bible study group,
Yeah.
that type of thing. Yeah.
Yep. Great. So one of the things that we'll want to do is we will work to come to clarity then on these competing values. And what we're going to have to do, so one of the things Todd talks about a lot is that, and I say this, I'm a big, just going to tell you, I'm a big both and person. Like that's, in fact, it's a joke in my church. Like when we're debating something, they look at me and they're like, yeah, Matt, we know both, right? So this is something I'm working on. But when it comes to this kind of a thing, it can't be, it's not a win-win. It's not both. Or we don't go anywhere. Nothing changes. Now, the good news is this. It's also not complete one and zero of the other. What we're talking about is what's primary and what's secondary. And the thing that I appreciate about that then is it doesn't mean, like, let's just take the first one and let's just for now say we have to do stability first. Let's just say that. It doesn't mean that we're never going to give any attention to energy and innovation. It just means, here's what it means. We've got $50 left in the budget. Are we going to use it in the direction of further stability within the congregation or some type of innovative outreach? At that point, we have to make a decision. And by coming to clarity on which one has the priority for us, that's what indicates which way we will go. And again, doesn't mean there's not going to ever be focus on energy and innovation, but we need that clarity and we have to decide on one or we're always gridlocked and we don't go anywhere. So part of the work that we will need to do is to name clearly for ourselves collectively, well, which one's it going to be? And moving forward in that direction in light of our charism and in light of the pain points that we have. And again, we'll walk through that with you. But thank you so much for naming those now. That's super helpful to me. In fact, we already did that. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Real quick, this is actually really encouraging. That's wait. Okay, here we go. Some of the shifts that we were just looking at. I was looking at it and based on the data that I had and working with you all, some of the ones that I was noticing were the shift from being serving only us to serving the community. And so that kind of relates to your first one a little bit. Um, the pastor is spiritual professional, the body of Christ. Though Steve mentioned that one. Now, you all as a collective whole didn't. I do think that one's pretty important because I think there's a whole lot of ramifications tied in with it. But then the third one, and it kind of relates to a couple of different ones that we just walked through. I do think there is something about from worship style preference or debating our preference to what does worship look like from a multi-generational spiritual formation? Like what would it look like to make that shift so that it's not just what we like or what our preference is, but again, the spiritual component at a multi-generational level, what might that look like? Now, based on what you just gave me some of the feedback, I'll update some of this to say I absolutely think we should work on the stability one and some of the other ones that you mentioned. But these were a couple of the shifts that I had noted in the work that I was doing. It also relates to when thinking about adaptive initiatives, the first one I talked about with you all and thinking about you all is the idea of to reauthorize the church's mission as for the community. So again, that one relates totally to the first one that you said. Like, are we going to be about us and stability, or is it going to be about innovation, connection to the community? That's something that I didn't list that as that's what you should do. I'm saying that's the adaptive initiative you need to be thinking about. Similarly, the shift from pastor centric to the shared lay leadership, coming to conclusion on what that needs to be. And then also again, the reimagining worship identity for a new generation. There's overlap. There's obviously match the shifts, but when you take the shift and identify it as an adaptive initiative, that's what it becomes. So, hearing you all tonight, I wanted to hear from you first, what you saw yours as being. I'm just sharing with you from my perspective what I see it being based on the data that I have, and then, the questions and things that we work through. So those are the things I just want to name for us tonight, and then we're going to have conversation around these to help move ourselves forward. Let me pause here a second. So we did the shift. So help me out here just a minute. Like we're not going to spend long on this, but as I walk through this with you, or go back to the ones you said, the stability one or whatever, as you think about this for just a minute, help me. I mean, when you think about these, particularly the shifts that we've just named, tell me what you like in what you hear, or tell me what you wish you would hear when I walk through that, or as I walk through those shifts with you or adaptive initiatives, is there anything that makes you say, well, I wonder what this would look like based on that? So any of those three, just as a little bit of feedback for me. I really like that one. Actually, I wish this was the case, or you just got me wondering, what if? Can you just help me out with that a little bit?
All three of those?
Any of them? No, it can be any of them.
Okay.
I think one that stands out for me is the reimagine. I wonder what the
Thank you. Yeah.
reimagined worship identity for the new generation would look like in our congregation.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Right. And so like just what I want us to feel in that is just a permission to want, like we don't have to have the answer right now. Like we don't have to have the, but yeah, like just dwell on that a little bit. I wonder what a worship experience that engaged people at different levels and different, what might that be like? There's
Yeah.
just something about that that feels invitational instead of a barrier, right? Or a debate. Like, I wonder. So thank you. Oh, that's excellent. Thank you. What else?
Just a couple of comments in terms of the reimagining. Um, we've kind of talked about that, I think. And for our congregation, that probably doesn't mean, and a lot of churches have tried that, you bring in something to get 20-year-olds. Well, that's basically hasn't worked in other cases, and I don't think would work for us. But if there's some way we could move from our 80s, 70s, and 80s and start bringing in 40s and 50s, uh, and be able to handle kids, but not target teenagers, because in other churches I've been in that hasn't worked. In terms of the pastor centric, for me, it looks like we're exactly where we are. I mean, Steve doesn't have any more time, and I think we are basically a lay led leadership, and part of that's Steve doing a good job of having session do that. The hard part, I think, is the going to the community because we're used to working with ourselves and with our age. That's going to be the hardest one to do. It's what you need to do, but it's going to be very hard, I think, with our congregation.
Good. Yeah, thank you, Zach. So, right, I hear you saying it's helpful for me to hear the greatest most challenging adaptive initiative you see is the reaching out to the community, right?
Right.
And then also, you just reminded me as you were saying, like the other thing I just would want to lift up when we talk about reimagining worship identity, so using the I wonder statement there, I think this also becomes a great opportunity, again, build on your charism. So, it's great to maybe change music, change styles, bring in Stan. That's great. But here's a question. You all, it's deep within your charism. You are a shepherding people
Yep.
in a time, especially when young people, and I'm talking like, Gen Z, so 20s, 30s, 20, when they're suffering with loneliness and epidemics, and then as an epidemic, what would a worship experience where they feel shepherded look like? That may or may not have anything to do with music or music style, but connection, cared for, nurtured? Uh, I don't have the answers to that. I'm just raising the question that, like, what I know is that you all in spades have shepherding and nurturing. Well, what would a worship experience that just overflows in that look like? And you might say, well, we already do that with each other. I'm not talking with each other. I'm talking with, so anyhow, Maxine, go ahead.
One of the things I remember we did in the past was Teen Challenge. And the Teen Challenge choir would come in maybe once a year, and each of them would tell their story of struggle or where they were at. And then we were asked to, as a congregation, after the service, to, pray for that individual, go up to them and blah, 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 which I did. But there was no follow up. So I think one of the things when you say about reaching out into the community, maybe it's more listening also one to one and giving testimony. I've given testimony in my doctor's office waiting to see the doctor about how I felt the Holy Spirit was with me and blah blah blah. But I think of the teens today, I felt bad. We just don't seem to do anything with that generation to show we care one on one. I thought Teen Challenge was a good opportunity, and then you tried to follow up on that person, and that was really hard to do. I mean, Teen Challenge didn't make it easy either. It wasn't so much us. It was like they sang, they came, we're gone.
Yep.
And you continue to pray for that person, but that was about the only person to person contact you would have.
Yep. Yep. Thank you. I love
Yeah,
I love your observation about the follow-up, because again, shepherding involves follow-up. So anyhow, thank you. Who was jumping in there?
I was just going to say that I wonder if we reauthorize the mission to for the community, would that give us more ideas about how to worship for the new generation?
Ooh.
You know what I'm saying? So if we were in the community for the community, maybe we would think differently about reimagining our worship, or even the second one, shifting from pastor centric. So
Lisa, that is so good, right? Like, I wonder if the mission, shifting that mission statement or focus becomes a catalyst, fuel for the third one about the worship.
yeah.
Awesome. 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 Yes. Yes. Good. Good. Any other I wonders, I wishes, I likes on this?
I just wanted to say that Lisa's comment is exactly what I was thinking in terms of that. If we're a church for the community, then our worship isn't the question for worship isn't how do I like this service for me? It's how does this service equip me to be out in the community and
Yes.
maybe even make room for people
Yes.
who need to find a place here. So I think that first one for me is the adaptive initiative.
Thank
Are
you.
we a church for the community?
Great. Awesome. Thank you. Is there, I just, if I could do that quickly, just Steve, thanks for saying which one was first for you. And I heard Zach express a similar idea. Does there seem to be common consensus that that top one is maybe the greatest adaptive initiative or challenge before you at the moment?
I
Well,
think
Yeah.
I think that one sounds really interesting, and but I can't. I'm kind of a person who needs some help envisioning, like, I wonder what that looks like.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
right. Yeah.
and I'm sure, with your experience, with others' experiences, you've seen how that can maybe look, and it probably looks different in different communities. But sort of get a picture of what are some of the things that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. And Joan, I'll just say this quickly at the moment. If y'all were to decide to do a phase two with us or with me, that's exactly the kind of stuff we would figure out together, because the simple answer, or I don't fully know right now, because we would have to experiment our way into it. It would actually be
Mhm.
foolish of me to sit here right now and say, well, here's exactly what it would look like for you. Then I would just be defaulting to a technical solution that's not
Right. Uh-huh.
helpful. Instead, we know your charism better now. We know the pain points better now. We wonder together. We ask the questions together. That's what leads us to experiment. As we experiment, we'll learn from that. And that's what will then tell us most what to do moving forward. So that's a great question to ask.
Mhm. Sort of like when Maxine just brought up about the teen challenge. I hadn't heard anything about teen challenge in ages.
Yeah.
And it's sort of like, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You start to get some ideas of some different things. So,
Good.
Well, the other thing I thought about, we've talked about when you talk about going into the community is when it gets near a holiday or especially Christmas and stuff. I've heard other churches, not large churches, they send 4 people who sing to a nursing home or a hospital, or I realize there's always little red labels and things to get that done. But we don't really do that. We don't come out, we have this cookie exchange where, okay, so I take home all the cookies. Well, I don't need all the cookies. Maybe it's cookie exchange and we say we're going to give them to somebody who we know is going to be alone for the holidays or something. I just think the same thing. We blessed the backpacks last Sunday. Why aren't we giving backpacks to kids? Okay. Why aren't we doing that? Now, it doesn't have to be, I know you have to be careful with schools, the message of the Lord, but you always can put a little gift card in that says from, the blessings from St. Peter's by the Sea. Doesn't have to, but we need to make people aware that this church is active and out there. And I don't think we do a very good job of it. Where are we at city hall meetings or whatever you want to call? I mean, I live in a different town, and so it's hard. It really is hard to get into that community involvement of Huntington Beach because I just don't live there. But that doesn't mean that there aren't ways, to go to a nursing home or help out the Huntington Beach Senior Center and represent St. Peter's by the Sea.
Yeah. Maxine, thank you. Absolutely. And yeah, and so again, like looking in our community, and this is where just would remind us we don't want to abandon the pain points we heard and matching that with who we are. And that's, Maxine, you're reminding us of that in those comments. So thank you. Like we want to keep on doing that.
I think that,
Yeah.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
this is Cheryl. I just wanted to point out, though, that we had one of our most successful school supplies drives this year.
Yeah.
And we did get a lot of positive community support from Harborview, from Oakview Literacy and other organizations. So we didn't do backpacks, we did supplies,
Yeah.
but that's what they said they needed. So just throwing that out there. And Maxine, if you ever want to go with us, it was an amazing experience to deliver those supplies. You're welcome to come.
Cheryl, can I just ask real quick? I love what you just said. If I heard correctly, it sounds like they told you specifically what they needed. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, so right, that is a micro example of the exact kind of thing that we want to do. Like they told us the need. We didn't guess, we didn't make an assumption. They told us, we followed up accordingly. Awesome. That's great. That's great. All right.
the
Go
the
ahead.
question,
Go ahead.
the comment I was going to make was that towards that first question is, and Cheryl is head of the mission area of our church right now, and I've served on the mission committee for 8 years. We do a lot of wonderful things. Our church is always willing to donate for, they'll bring the supplies, but it's the actual same handful of people that go out into the community and do the work from there on. And we're just sort of limited with our membership being the way it is in the number of people that we have to go out in the community and do all these things.
Yeah, so thank you. As you say that, so that's why one of the things that we're going to do as we journey through this, there's probably going to be it sounds like you all try to do a lot. You do a lot in a variety of ways. Well, what would it look like to say we're not going to do as many things? But we're going to go deeper in the ones that we are most wired to do while simultaneously trying to involve others in that with us. So that to your very point, what we don't want is the 20% doing almost all of the work. And that's a very common thing in many churches. And even though we said on the second point here, pastor centric to shared lay leadership or lay led leadership, that does apply to Steve, but I do think there's an element of that that applies too to like we also don't want the 20% doing like we want it to spread to absolutely everyone in the church, which is again why this is an adaptive challenge we're facing. So you're exactly right to lift that up, and that'll be one of the things that we will keep working on together. That's
Yeah.
good. Let me do this because I know our time is almost up here. Y'all been amazing, let me say. This is what I'm gonna do. You've got the recording that you'll have that you can look at this. I will be taking the slides that we've gone through tonight and I'm gonna rework them a little bit in light of what I've heard from you all this evening. That's what I'm going to bring when I come on site with you then in a few next month. We will do some exercises at our on-site that are going to help us get to more clarity on the charism and then more clarity around the adaptive initiatives that we're facing and more clarity around the competing values so that we can make some commitments together about moving forward. As we do that, let me just kind of show you where we are in the journey here. So in walking with churches like such as yourselves, we've spent time now, like getting ever greater clarity on the charism. You are familiar with that. We'll keep distilling it down, but you've got a much better grasp of that now. We ask the question, how might our charism address the pain points of our community as an expression of God's mission in the world? So that means everything we do in the church that we're trying to reach out in doing, we don't want to just do it because we've always done it. We're doing it as meeting a pain point in the world, an expression of God's mission in the world, which we started to talk about already. We can do that when we know the pain points we're dealing with. We have already been identifying that, but notice the question that says under pain point, what is calling for our gift? What's calling for our unique gift? Or what is ours uniquely to do? That's one of the questions that I'm really going to invite us to be honing in on because, and not just you all as the leaders, when we as a congregation can answer together, this is ours, this is mine, that's where some of the ownership starts to come in. Because part of what I'm hearing is that if 20% are doing the work and 80% are not, for whatever reason, they don't care, they don't know, they don't see it as theirs. We need to get to the place where they see it as theirs as well. Then we start to have the buy-in and the ownership as well. As we do that, we hope that that's going to inspire us to faithfully change and grow. And in fact, we ask, how can living into the pain point in the unique way that God has wired us, how can that inspire us to faithfully change and grow? And then we actually start to take action and live into it. That's where the transformation happens with adaptive capacity as our spiritual transformation occurs. This is the journey that we're on. So this is what it looks like a little bit more practically. What we've done together thus far, we've done an exploration process with the survey, talking with you all, me working with you, and then we're listening and discerning together. So the second workshop will come up in October. We've already done the focus groups, the storytelling, the community interviews, leading to transformation. By the time I'm done with you, we'll have done the exploratory process and you will be at a place where you've listened and discerned together based on your charism, the adaptive initiatives we've identified, the competing values. We'll have all of that laid out clearly. It will be up to you all then to decide if you would want to travel any further in a phase 2 with me, where we would actually put into practice and actions the things that we've learned here in phase 1. The reason that we take this journey with you as AE Sloan is, I guess I'll show you this super quickly. I'm going to change this, so take this with a grain of salt, but I just want to show you this. I could have come in with you for a month and listened carefully and then given you the top list, the technical fixes, like things that can make life better for you all. I'm still going to give those things to you. And again, I'm going to change these a little bit based on our conversation tonight, but there are things that you can practically do to help. The reason we've spent so much time together listening and getting to this point is because we're also, in addition to the technical changes, we're going to work with you on making some of these adaptive challenges or addressing these adaptive challenges. So things like what we've already talked about, whether it's a different worship identity or moving from pastor centric to everyone, or all of those kinds of things. We are going to work on those things together that we were just talking about a few minutes ago. That can't be done in just a quick couple listening sessions in a few weeks. That's why we've taken as long as we have. But because you've done that, because you've done some deep listening, and because we're asking these questions, it's the questions that will lead us to new answers and solutions and those kinds of things moving forward. So that's where we are in the process and in the journey. So a couple quick reminders, and then if you have any final questions for me, I want to answer those, and then I'm going to let you go. I will come out with you. I will be with you all on October the 2nd. That's a Thursday evening at 6 o'clock. We're going to spend live time when I come there workshopping on site many of the things we've gone through tonight. So I just want to give you a heads up. When I get there on site, there'll be things that sound familiar to you because you've been journeying through this as the leadership, as the transformation team. But we're going to refine it even more. However, I'm also going to spend time reviewing it so that people who have not been part of the journey that we've been on will be able to get up to speed with us. And then only after that will a final report be sent back to you, because even in our workshop together, we'll be live timing it and I'll be adjusting things and tweaking things based on everybody's feedback, kind of like what we did tonight. I've got some different notes to make updates based on what we've talked about. So I hope as you start to think about that, like even tonight, I just want to commend you. I think I just really loved some of your I wonder questions. To me, even those questions, I can already start to feel some unlocking of possibility. And remember one of our early quotes from Ed Freeman about getting beyond the gridlock. When you were asking some of those questions, like I can start to feel some of the shift away from the gridlock to new possibilities moving forward. So questions, thoughts. We'll wrap up here, but I know that's a lot, and so thanks for your time here tonight, and thanks for your time on the journey. You've been great throughout this. What's on your mind before I let you go tonight?
How much time should we plan for the couple hours for the October, what is it, 4th or 2nd? Second.
I would say actually 3 hours.
Okay.
And I say we can do it in three. That's about as short as we can do it. And lots of times in that session, we do more like 4 hours, which is totally fine. But I'm just saying to you, even tonight, like there were some things we went through fairly quick with a group this size. You saw how long some things took, and we've got even more work to do. Because I want us to get to a more clarified charism statement, like kind of one statement that we'll have. I want us to have clarity on on the competing values, which one we feel is the priority and which one is not. And we won't even be able to do them all, but we're going to do the main ones that can lay the foundation for moving forward as you might desire.
Um,
I'm
Matt,
sorry.
what if you can't be there? I'm going to be out of town. Will it be taped like this one will?
I'm going to, yes, from my perspective, but I would need Steve, I would need your all's help just on the technical end, but absolutely, I have no problem with it being
Or
recorded.
notes? I mean, whatever is easier. I don't want to.
Yep.
I just want to keep up, and I don't want to.
Yes, and yes, we can record it if you want, but also Maxine, I will be sending a final report that can include all the slides and stuff too.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Of course, no problem.
This question is to Steve. Steve, do you think because of the age of our congregation, 6 to 10, could we start maybe earlier?
If it's 3 hours, 6 to 9.
Well, he said 6 to 9 or even 4 hours.
I would keep it if they start at 6, I'll keep it to 3. I want you to do it, but it's up to you as far as the time then.
Because most of our people, I think that might be late for them, and I don't want to discourage their attendance.
I think that if you moved it up earlier, you'd be bumping into dinner for some, and yeah. It's one of those. It's one of those like, do you drag them on farther, or do you try to get them there earlier? I'm open.
But it's also going to be dark by that time, and we will we will have people that will not be coming because not be driving because it's dark, and we'll need maybe carpooling. I'm just throwing that out. That's a lot.
No, that's reality.
Yeah,
that's reality.
Sorry.
Maybe what about just 5? Maybe 5 to 8. Just an hour, they may have to eat earlier. They would probably rather eat earlier than stay till 9.
How about this? If it's okay with you all, let me chat with Steve because I just to be very honest, I also just need to double check that my flight can get there in time as well, which I think it can, but I need to double check on that. If you're all okay with it, I'll talk with Steve. We'll pick a finalized time based on the feedback you've already been given. And what we can also do is it is going to be recorded. I'll make sure the slides get there afterwards. Like I would say, Steve and I can talk, but maybe there's another time as well that you all or all of you could set some time aside for a second session with people if need be. We'll make sure people's voice is included one way or another. Would that be okay?
Yeah. Joyce, you've made the suggestion, but I would like to hear from others in terms of if you want to stick with the time at 6, do this. If you want to go to 5, show me 5 fingers.
What do you want?
So go like this if you're wanting to stay at 6. Hold your whole hand out if you want. If you think 5 is a better hour. Everybody's got to vote.
Either's okay with me.
Okay.
Me too, but I'm just thinking of participants.
Okay.
No, that's helpful. Thank you. That's great.
Yeah.
Great observation. Good. Any other questions of any kind, logistics or anything else?
Thank you for a thorough presentation tonight.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for your good work. Please hear me. I am really encouraged by your engagement. That it makes such a difference. And some of the things you've already come up with, just makes me feel excited. So well done. Good. I love your heart. I love the trust. I love the possibility for transformation. And that makes me excited for what can be for all of you. So
I would just say one other thing with that. I really did feel like the download of all these different things, as you were doing it, it felt like we were drinking concentrate. It was like, yeah, this is really, I mean, the distillation of all that, the work that everybody else did, it just felt like a awesome summary of all of that. So
thank you. I'm so glad. And thank you, Steve. But again, that's also a reflection of your good work, which makes that possible. So Steve, would you mind maybe just closing us in a word of prayer tonight and then we can everyone go? Thank you.
Sounds great. Oh, Lord, thank you for bringing us together. We are so grateful for your spirit moving in the life of this church. Thank you, Lord, for the long history that's here, for some that have been here from the beginning. But our desire is to see others connect with your love, to make a difference here in this community in the long run, knowing that it's your spirit leading us and guiding us. We pray, Lord, that we would not only care for our own, but we would also care for those in this community that need to know there's a place for them. And so, Lord, thank you for the good work of Matt. Thank you for his leadership among us. And thank you, Lord, for the leaders that are gathered here. Help us, Lord, to respond to your prompting and to do it, Lord, not out of anxiety, but out of the fullness of your love. And so grant us rest tonight and refreshment as we wake in the morning to serve you in our daily tasks. And we pray all this in the name of Jesus. Amen.
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 Have a
Thanks,
great night,
guys.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Good
everyone.
night. Night all.
Good night.
Night.